I saved her lost daughter. Now the alien mother wants me as her mate. The first time I heard the child's cry, it was almost lost in the shatter wind that scoured the glassy dunes. I was out beyond the colony fence, scavenging a wrecked survey drone for parts, when the wind shifted and the sound threaded into my helmet. Thin, musical, not quite human. I crested a ridge and saw her. A small, violet-skinned girl, waist-deep in a sink of silvergrass that tightened the more she fought. Her crest fronds lay flat with fear. By the time she saw me, I'd already anchored a rope and slid. "Easy," I said, voice calm. "I've got you." She watched me with pupils like spilled ink as I cut the grass away with my fusion blade, the air turning sweet and bitter from the sap. When the last loop loosened, she sprang into me, light as a bundle of reeds. She tucked her head against my chest plate, chittered a word my translator didn't catch, and only then began to cry properly. "I'm Nathan," I told her, lifting us out with the winch. "You safe?" "Sori," she whispered, the translator catching it cleanly now. "Home." I walked her home through the glittering dusk. The Velari enclave grew out of the rock like coral, the walls iridescent and low, the doorways strung with chimes that sang to the wind. When Sori leapt from my arms and ran, I saw who she ran toward. Her mother moved like poured steel. Taller than me, skin like storm clouds shot through with silver, hair a crown of soft, luminous fronds. Her eyes were the same ink black as Sori's, but tempered with an old kind of grief. She listened to her child's torrent of clicks and syllables, then stepped forward. "I am Aeralyn," she said, laying a hand over her heart and then touching mine with 2 fingers, a Velari greeting I'd learned in a pamphlet and never used. "You saved my first breath." "Happy to help," I said, awkward suddenly under her gaze. She bowed a precise angle. "Then you have bound us." "Bound?" "Our lives," she said simply. "The Kelron. A saving of a first breath binds families. The old law offers claim." Her eyes softened. "It is the law that would make you my mate." The word landed like a stone in my chest. Around us, the chimes sang and the sky bent low with incoming weather. I glanced at Sori, who clung to her mother's leg and peered up at me as if the decision were already made. "I don't belong to anyone," I said, careful. "And I can't be claimed. Not like property." Aeralyn's crest lifted slightly. "Claim is an old word. Want is the living one." Before I could answer, the wind reared. The shatterstorm came early, hurling knives of sand and glittering shards that could flense flesh. The colony's alarm keened. Aeralyn seized my wrist. "Inside," she ordered. "You will not make it back to the humans' walls." In her home, firelight painted the walls with warm ripples. Sori curled under a woven blanket and watched me with unblinking solemnity. Aeralyn brewed something that smelled like cardamom and rain. When she set the cup in my hands, our fingers brushed. The contact was the current. "Your law," I said softly. "Tell me what it means beyond the word." She sat across from me, spine straight, hands folded. "Our world kills the unbound. My mate died in last season's ashfall. Sori has no shielding elder. When you lifted her from the silver grass, you stitched a thread between our names. The old law names it mate bond. The true meaning is simpler. Stay, stand, share. It is not ownership. It is promise." The storm gnawed the eaves. Sori yawned and crawled toward me, eyelids heavy. She laid her head on my knee as if it had always known the path. I looked down at her small, trusting face and felt something in me unspool. Something I'd kept tight since Earth, since leaving behind a marriage that collapsed quietly under the weight of distance and duty. Before dawn, the raiders came on skimmers that skimmed the storm-slick flats. Thin men with respirators and spike guns, drawn by the glow of Velari homes. The alarms bled into the wind. Aeralyn's spear, glass with a humming edge, was already in her hand. I shoved Sori into a stone alcove and slapped my last 3 mining charges into the sand between homes. On my mark, I told Aeralyn. Together, she said, and took position. When the first skimmer slid between the houses, I thumbed the detonator. The charges flared, light through fog, a silent rip that upended skimmers and sent raiders tumbling. Aeralyn moved like water, spear singing, driving them away from the doors. One slipped past, a spike gun rising. Sori peeped from the alcove. I flung myself, caught the man under the ribs, and all 3 of us went down. The gun clattered away. He scrambled. I didn't let him rise. When he finally ran, he left blood that steamed on the cold stones. After, with the raiders scattered and the storm at last unwinding, the enclave gathered, their chimes hanging straight and quiet. A Velari elder muttered the old words, offered Aeralyn a woven band, and looked to me. The law, he intoned through the translator. Bound in storm and blood. Mate bond. I lifted my hands. I won't be taken, I said. I'll only stay if staying is a choice. Equal. Aeralyn stepped between me and the elder. We do not take, she said, voice bladed. Then she turned to me, softer. Ask. One. Not because of law, but because when the storm cut and the raiders came, you stood with us. Because my child has already placed her head upon your knee. Because when I speak, you listen as though I am more than my grief. My mouth was dry. Sori reached for my fingers, her small hand like a starfish, anchoring. Then hear me back, I said. I won't be a savior. I'll be a partner. I'll mend roofs. I'll learn the chimes. I'll leave if I ever become a shadow on your door. Aeralyn's smile was a slow, luminous thing. Then you are already learning our word for home. Days folded into work. I repaired the old pump so the enclave cisterns filled again with water that tasted of iron and morning. Sori showed me how to read the wind by the way the chimes dreamed. I taught her the trick of catching sparks off a battery terminal without burning your fingers. At night, Aeralyn and I spoke in near whispers while Sori slept, about the dead and the living, about Earth's rains and Velari sky kites that harvest lightning. We did not touch much. When we did, it was at doorways and in passing, the kind of touches that said more than names. The next storm rose purple-black, a cathedral walking. We anchored the sky kites and hauled lines, the wind burning our lungs. A bolt took a kite and came for Aeralyn. I grabbed the line, felt the shock bite, and refused to let go. We both went to our knees. She covered my hands with hers until the surge passed and the line stilled. When the storm finally broke, the enclave stepped into air washed clean. Aeralyn turned to me. The elder watched. Sori, hair gone wild in the wind, tugged my sleeve. Stay, she asked. Stay, I answered. And I laid my boots at Aeralyn's threshold, toes touching the sill. Velari, for I enter as family, not as guest. The chimes woke in a new, tender breeze. Aeralyn's fingers traced mine, an old law rewritten between us, silent but bright. I had saved a child and found a home that asked me to stand, not save, to share, not own. The storm-broken world shone. Under twin moons, Sori slipped her small hand between ours, and together we stepped inside.